Hi everyone, Doug and Julie here with our 2022 Chevy Bolt EUV Premier, our second electric vehicle. We've finally had some miles behind the wheel, so in this video we wanted to give you a review of the car, as well as touch on why we got this one and what our plans are going forward. A quick side note, throughout this review and in future Bolt videos, you'll hear us reference our 2021 Ford Mustang Mach-E in comparison to the Bolt. This isn't really fair as they aren't really comparable. Most people shopping for one wouldn't also be shopping for the other. But while we've driven a number of EVs, the Mach-E is what we know most and where most of our EV knowledge stems from. If you're not coming here from our Mach-E files, check those out as there's a lot of good info there, and more than just Mach-E info. Anywho, Chevy first introduced the Bolt in late 2016 as a 2017 model all-electric hatchback. It has always been a great value for an EV and sold well with many owners still raving about their cars. Unfortunately, it's probably most famous for a series of recalls due to fire risks. The fact is, out of almost 150,000 cars sold, only about a dozen actually caught fire. But that was enough for Chevy to eventually recall all Bolts to replace their high-voltage batteries. For the 2022 model, Chevy refreshed the look of the EV, including a new, better interior, and introduced a second model called the EUV, calling it a compact crossover SUV. But as it's basically the same vehicle as the EV in a slightly larger body, we'd still call it a hatchback. All Bolts are front-wheel drive, utilizing a 200 horsepower motor with 266 pound-feet of torque. From 2020 on, all Bolts had a 65 kilowatt-hour battery pack, offering more or less 250 miles of EPA-rated range. All but the earliest Bolts charge with CCS1 charging ports, but the maximum fast charging speed is only 55 kilowatts. We picked up our EUV at the end of August 2025 as a one-owner car with only 25,209 miles. We had been living with just one car for a few years, but regularly considered getting a second car again. A misunderstanding between the Mach-E and our garage's workbench and the cancellation of the used EV federal tax credit pushed up our time frame a little bit sooner than we really wanted to. But by then, we had a short list of models we were considering and ended up at a dealer that specializes in used EVs, and only used EVs, including a number of Bolts for us to choose from. As our EUV is a top-spec Premier model, it came with a lot of standard features. Seating is leather-appointed with an 8-way adjustable driver's seat, heated and ventilated front seats, and heated rear outboard seats. The steering wheel is heated as well. Technology is through a 10.2-inch touchscreen infotainment system, including wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Driver assistance and safety features include adaptive cruise control and an excellent surround-view camera system, complete with Park Assist and Chevy Safety Assist. The only option our car has is the Sun and Sound package, which gives us a dual-pane panoramic sunroof, a 7-speaker Bose premium audio system, and embedded navigation. We don't have the $2,200 Super Cruise hands-free driving option, which is fine because that's not something we wanted. When new, our Bolt had an MSRP of just over $38,000, although that price dropped in 2023 to a little over $33,000. We got ours for about $21,000, plus fees. Our car was a lease return with just one previous owner in California and is in overall excellent condition. The only real visible flaws are some scuffs on the wheels, on every wheel, and a few scratches on the interior. Being a used car, we of course had to spend a little money right away to make it more like new. The biggest cost was needing 2 new front tires and an alignment. It looked like the previous owner never rotated them. The rest was small stuff, like new wiper blades all around. We haven't spent a lot on accessories. So far, just getting organizers for the center storage area and trunk, a sunshade, and a cord to connect Julie's iPhone for Apple CarPlay. More on that in a bit. For charging, our Bolt came with the original spec dual-level charging cord, but we keep that in the trunk for emergencies as we already have our own Level 2 EV-SE for the Mach-E. If you've followed our adapter saga from the Mach-E files, you'll know we also have 3 NACS to CCS1 adapters, so now we keep one of those in the center console of the Bolt. Although we'll likely never need it as this car will almost never be fast charged. To better explain that, let's get into why we bought this car. When we bought the Mach-E, we actually test drove Bolts and really liked them. So when we did decide it was time for a second car, we thought the Bolt would make a good one. And as a second car, it didn't need to have huge range or super fast charging as we'll likely never take it on longer road trips. Its main purpose is to get Julie to work and back, and run some of our local errands. We even considered getting a super cheap EV, but ultimately decided to spend just a little bit more to get something nicer with a few more features, in case we keep it for a while. As a local commuter, this car is really good, so unless we run into a lot of reliability issues, it should be in our stable for some time. At least for now, that's the plan. So, why wouldn't this work as a primary car for us? Well, here's where we start making comparisons to the Mach-E, and the biggest reasons all center around long-distance travel. For starters, while the Bolt is perfectly comfortable around town, the seats are a little flat and hard, and we're not confident they'd be a comfortable place to spend a lot of time in. We've already taken it to the coast, a little over an hour each way, and it was fine. But the Mach-E is noticeably quieter and more comfortable, and we've taken that on 12-plus-hour road trips without issue. But the biggest challenge would be the fast charging. Our Mach-E has fast charging that peaks at 150 kilowatts and averages around 100 kilowatts, which means it takes around 40 to 45 minutes to charge from 10 to 80% on a road trip. On our road trips, we've averaged around 30 minutes per charge, and frankly, that's about as long as we want to wait. The Bolt only charges at 55 kilowatts max, and averages even less in the 10 to 80% charge. This means the average stop is likely to be an hour, or more. We could optimize those stops, but that just means ultimately we'd end up with more stops. A real-world example would be the drive from our house in Beaverton, Oregon to my brother's house in Copperopolis, California, about 670 miles away. In the Mach-E, we need to stop about 3 times to charge and usually make that drive in 12 to 13 hours. Plug the Bolt into a better route planner, and it suggests we'll need to stop 6 or 7 times and take 14.5 hours. EV detractors like to say charging takes a prohibitively long time. We don't agree with that for a lot of reasons, but the Bolt definitely isn't helping our argument. But other than long trips, there's a lot to like about the Bolt. For starters, and most importantly, it drives well. Really well. Bordering on fun. Not Porsche Boxster fun, but the smaller size helps with a very nimble feel. The Bolt is 1,000 pounds lighter than the Mach-E, and you can really tell from behind the wheel. And while I wouldn't call it fast, the 266 pound-feet of instant torque will ensure you're not left wanting when going from stoplight to stoplight. The other advantage of a small car? Maneuverability in tighter spaces. Parking is a breeze. But if you do have any problems, there's a very comprehensive camera system to help guide you. And speaking of the tech, that's pretty good too, especially considering the budget. We've hit the highlights, but there are other more subtle things that are pretty cool. For example, I love the GOM. It gives you an estimated range, like any other EV, but also gives you a range number if you drive very conservatively, and another number if you drive like a hooligan. I think this should be on every EV, as it's especially helpful for new EV owners who don't fully understand the myriad of factors that can affect a car's range. On the right side of the IP is a gauge that shows in real time when the car is using energy or regenerating it, and how much of each. If you really get on it, the whole IP glows yellow to let you know you are, well, wasting energy. In the infotainment screen, there's a cool visual illustration of that using or regenerating action as well. While the infotainment tech is very good, the Bolt still has a nice balance of physical buttons for things like the climate control. These are not only better to use than a touchscreen, they're safer as using them requires the driver to take their eyes off the road for less time. Another thing we like about the Bolt is the large sunroof. While the Mach-E's sunroof is bigger, the Bolt's actually opens for fresh air. Or when it's too sunny, the Bolt has a retractable sunshade built in, where we had to buy an aftermarket shade for the Mach-E. Some of the things we like seem less important but really make a difference. Julie loves the remote start, especially when the weather turns cold as the Bolt lives outside all of the time. In warmer weather, the ventilated seats are an especially nice feature. And while we both love the Mach-E, can I tell you how much we missed having a car with normal door handles? Of course, the Bolt is far from perfect. We've already highlighted the fast charging woes, but there are some other things we'd put firmly in the dislike category. The biggest and most disappointing is our wireless Apple CarPlay situation. For whatever reason, Julie has to go through a reconnection process every time she gets into the car. It's like it loses her phone every time she shuts the car off for any length of time. Once reconnected, it works well, but the reconnection process takes a lot of time. Too much time. Thankfully, plugging her phone in with a USB cable brings an instant connection, so there is a workaround. We've had our local Chevy dealer chase the problem, but even after a few software updates, the problem still persists, so we've pretty much resigned to just using the plug all the time. We're still glad to at least have Apple CarPlay, considering all new Chevys have ditched it in favor of built-in systems that ultimately require subscriptions. Even our Bolt requires a subscription to OnStar for a few features, and that's another $15 a month we just don't want to pay, which means the Bolt's navigation is pretty useless, and remote start can no longer be done through the app. Other dislikes. For one, the radio pops on every time you turn the car on. But as much as I love the GOM for its range of numbers, the one number it's missing is the battery percentage. Nowhere on the IP or in the technology here is there an actual battery percentage number. It's a bar divide it into quarters, give you a rough estimate on your battery percentage. But if you want to know the actual number, you have to look at the app on your phone. Not a big deal for us because the way we use this car is pretty much just a local commuter, but as a road tripper, that's kind of a negative, and for someone trying to figure out your range, that's a great way to do it. 50% of battery takes 100 miles, you're in about a 200-mile range. But without that number, you're guessing based on the bars and not on an actual number. Kind of unfortunate. The Bolt has an excellent surround view camera setup, but the camera button is buried in the infotainment menu. They really need to add one here at the main menu for quicker access. This probably falls more into the category of disappointments rather than dislikes, but the Bolt's automatic headlights don't turn on as often as we'd like. It has daytime running lights to be seen, but there have been a number of times in evening light or rainy weather where I've had to turn the full headlights on manually. The Mach-E's automatic lights do a much better job. And speaking of automatic things, the Bolt's windshield wipers in delay mode are rain sensing. I've driven a lot of cars in my lifetime, and I have never, and I mean never, been in a car with rain sensing wipers that work when I want them to. And the Bolt is no different. Here in the Pacific Northwest, that's a big deal. And why on earth would you have this feature in the delay mode? That's just dumb. This may be because the car lives outside, but so far we're finding the climate control is having a hard time keeping our windows completely demisted in our cold, wet winter months. We're frequently pushing that max defrost button, which works pretty well, so at least there's that. Other disappointments are fairly minor. We wish it had a powered liftgate, although it's not like it's heavy. A powered passenger seat would be nice too. This car is clearly less insulated than the Mach-E as well. Not a problem in warmer months, but something else we've noticed in the winter. Chalk these up to the budget build. The Bolt was never supposed to be a premium car. And that's okay. The Bolt was discontinued in 2024, much to the chagrin of many loyal Chevy customers and EV advocates. But thanks to the growing demand for affordable EVs, it's coming back with refreshed styling and more modern battery tech to give it better range and faster charging speeds, but also without Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, as is the new standard operating procedure for GM cars. We'll look forward to checking that one out when it finally does arrive. But as much as we like the one we have now, I suspect we'll be keeping it for some time. Stay tuned for more updates down the road. In the meantime, happy motoring!